Close your eyes for a moment. Picture this. You're born in Russia on January 1st, 1900. Your family is poor. Peasants scratching frozen earth for food, or factory workers trudging to the gray, smoky streets of St. Petersburg. Above you sits the Tsar, ruling with absolute power, far removed from your tiny wooden cottage or cramped workers' dormitory. Your mother dreams you might break free. Maybe you'll learn to read, find honest work, escape the same brutal labor that has ground down your ancestors for centuries. But no one knows what your lifetime holds. You'll grow up just in time to see an empire crumble. Revolution will sweep through your village, tearing neighbors apart. You'll see brothers fight brothers in a bitter civil war. You'll hear whispered fears of secret police who come at night and never knock twice. You'll watch hunger hollow out entire towns, famine stalking the countryside. And when the world thinks it can't get worse, the largest war in human history will smash through your homeland, burning cities to ash. You won't just read this in books. You'll live it, not just as a witness, but as a survivor. In your earliest years, life is harsh but simple. Each day, you help your parents scratch out a living on land owned by a landlord you'll likely never see. Maybe you herd a few stubborn animals through snow-dusted fields, gather firewood from the dark forest, or rock your baby brother to sleep while your mother mends torn clothes. If you're lucky, by flickering candlelight, you trace the strange shapes of the Cyrillic alphabet, taught by a traveling teacher your village can barely afford. Most families around you are just like yours. Peasants, hungry more often than not, powerless to change their fate. A loaf of bread is precious. A warm coat is a treasure. Far away in gilded halls, the Romanov royal family feasts under crystal chandeliers, their empire glittering while the villages crack under winter winds. Whispers of revolution drift through the muddy streets. Factory workers, angry thinkers, secret meetings behind closed doors. But for you, rebellion is just a distant rumor. What matters is surviving one more freezing night, planting seeds that might not grow, and hoping next season's harvest is kinder than the last. In 1905, when you're just 5 years old, the ground beneath the Russian Empire begins to tremble. Hunger grows in cities. Workers toil for long hours in dark, dangerous factories, paid just enough to starve slowly. Hope fades until it gathers behind a priest named Father Gapon. On a bitter January morning, over 100,000 people march peacefully through the icy streets of St. Petersburg. They carry holy icons and portraits of the Tsar, convinced he is their little father who will listen to their cries for bread, justice, and dignity. But when they reach the gates of the Winter Palace, they are met not with mercy, but with gunfire. The Imperial Guards open fire on men, women, and children. Bodies fall in the snow. Blood soaks the frozen ground. History will remember this moment as Bloody Sunday. In the days that follow, strikes erupt across Russia. Riots flare in cities and farms. The Tsar scrambles to offer promises, more rights, a parliament. But for families like yours, nothing truly changes. The landlords still rule. The hunger still haunts. But something new is born that day in the cold, a sense that the people, once silent, can rise. And one day they will. When you turn 14, the world changes overnight. War breaks out, the Great War, what people will later call World War I. You watch neighbors, brothers, and cousins march away with songs and flags, ready to fight Germany and Austria-Hungary. At first, there is hope and pride. Crowds cheer. But Russia is not prepared. The army sends men to the front with old rifles and barely any boots. Some have no weapons at all. They fight in frozen trenches and endless forests, hungry and cold. Thousands fall every day. Millions will never return home. As you grow older, you're called to serve too, but by then the army is falling apart. Soldiers desert, fleeing back to villages with empty hands and haunted eyes. At home, your family lines up for bread that never comes. Food is shipped to the front lines, leaving mothers and children to starve. By 1917, the Tsar's promises of glory and victory lie buried in mass graves across Europe. The empire that seemed so mighty begins to crack, and for you and everyone you love, there is no turning back from what's coming next. You're 17 when the empire finally collapses. In February 1917, angry workers and hungry soldiers in Petrograd flood the streets. Strikes turn to riots as people demand an end to the war and the hunger that haunts every home. Faced with chaos, Tsar Nicholas II steps down. For the first time in centuries, Russia has no czar, no monarch at all. A provisional government takes charge, promising freedom and a better life. But the people want more than promises. They want peace, land, and bread. Right now, by October, the Bolsheviks, led by Lenin, seize their moment. In a second revolution, they storm palaces that once glittered with gold and diamonds, raising red flags where royal banners once flew. Crowds cheer for a new world where peasants and workers rule themselves. For a fleeting moment, hope feels real, the idea that the suffering might end at last. But change comes with a heavy cost. Loyalists and revolutionaries clash in a brutal civil war that turns neighbor against neighbor and leaves villages burned and families divided for years to come. From 1918 to 1921, Russia tears itself apart in a brutal civil war. The country splits between the Reds, the Bolsheviks and their supporters, and the Whites, who want to restore the old ways. Foreign armies arrive, too, hoping to shape Russia's future for themselves. Bandits roam the countryside. Neighbors who once shared bread now point rifles at each other. If you're old enough, you might be dragged into the Red Army to defend the revolution, or forced to fight for the Whites if they reach your village first. Many just hide and pray to survive while battles and raids burn fields and homes to ash. In cities, desperate families boil leather boots and belts into bitter soup. In the countryside, famine steals entire villages. As if war is enough, the Spanish flu sweeps through, taking the weak and hungry in wave after wave. By the time the Bolsheviks crush their enemies and declare victory, over 10 million Russians are gone, lost to bullets, starvation, and disease. You survived this nightmare, but survival has a cost: hunger, grief, and memories that will haunt you for the rest of your days. The new Soviet Union rises from the ashes of war and revolution, and in your 20s, you're expected to help build it or face the consequences. Lenin's death in 1924 brings Joseph Stalin to power, a man who promises to drag Russia into the modern age with new factories and massive collective farms. But his vision comes with terror. The secret police hunt down anyone branded an enemy of the people, sometimes for no reason at all. If you own a cow, a bit of extra land, or simply refuse to hand over your grain, you're marked for punishment. Millions are torn from their homes and sent to frozen camps in Siberia. Even more starve when forced famines sweep through the countryside, stealing whole villages from the map. Then comes the Great Purge. In the dark hours of night, footsteps echo in the streets. Neighbors disappear behind closed doors, never to return. People whisper about informers and lists. You learn quickly to keep your head down and your thoughts hidden. In public, you praise Stalin, cheering his name at rallies and parades. But in private, you pray that a knock on your door never comes, and that your family survives another day. At 39, in 1939, you watch as Hitler's armies conquer the West. Soon they turn east. In 1941, Operation Barbarossa begins, the largest military invasion the world has ever seen. Nazi Germany floods into the Soviet Union with tanks and soldiers, destroying everything in their path. Cities burn to the ground. Villages vanish overnight. In Leningrad, families starve behind frozen walls during a siege that lasts for years. In Stalingrad, entire streets become battlefields where every brick is fought over for months. Bombs fall day and night. By the time the Red Army pushes the Germans back in 1945, more than 20 million Soviet people are dead. Soldiers, farmers, mothers, children. Some don't fall to the enemy but are shot by their own commander for retreating or surrendering. If you live through it, you bury your brothers, cousins, and neighbors in shallow graves behind broken houses. When victory finally comes, there are parades and cheers, but your homeland lies in ruins. Fields littered with twisted metal and cities reduced to rubble and ash. The cost of surviving is heavy. Hunger, grief, and memories that never let you rest. You're 45 when World War II finally ends, but peace does not mean freedom from fear. Instead, a new struggle begins, the Cold War. Stalin's grip tightens across the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, sealing millions behind the Iron Curtain. Any word against a party can make you vanish overnight, sent to a distant gulag where survival is just another battle. In villages and cities alike, families still speak in hushed voices, worried that a neighbor or even a friend might be an informer. Rations, food lines, and endless propaganda shape daily life. Yet the USSR rebuilds with astonishing speed. Bombed-out cities rise again. Vast factories roar to life. And in 1957, the Soviet Union shocks the world by launching Sputnik, the first satellite to orbit Earth. It's a symbol of triumph and power, proof that the USSR is now a global force. But in your heart, you know the truth. All this progress rests on silent fear and forced sacrifice. Every celebration echoes with memories of war, purges, and nights spent wondering if a knock on the door will come for you next. If you were born in Russia in 1900, by the time you reach old age, your life has been marked by nearly every kind of human suffering. You survived the fall of an empire, 2 revolutions, and a civil war that turned neighbor against neighbor. You've lived through man-made famine so cruel, it wiped entire villages from a map. You've witnessed the rise of Stalin, watched friends disappear into gulags, and learned to fear your own thoughts. You've endured the bloodiest battles in history, Leningrad, Stalingrad, Kursk, and buried more loved ones than you can count. And after all that, you lived under the long, frozen tension of the Cold War, never sure if tomorrow would bring peace or nuclear fire. Yet somehow, through all of it, you kept going. And in the twilight of your life, you witnessed something remarkable. You see your children and grandchildren go to school, learn to read, dream freely, and build new lives. You watch the Berlin Wall rise, and decades later, see it fall. You see the Soviet Union dissolve, and a new Russia emerge in the shadows of the past. So the next time life feels hard, remember this. They endured the unthinkable so we could imagine something better.